Manchester United, Stuart, how on earth can we do a show like this morning off the back of a home defeat to Crystal Palace, but in the wider sense not talk about where they're at? This is the worst start to any campaign in 34 years for United. You got to go back to 1989 when Sir Alex, of all people, found himself on the brink before an FA Cup win over Stuart's Nottingham Forest, and that saved his neck at United. And thereafter, great things happened. But after the game on the weekend, though, Ten Hag, he didn't shirk it. Yeah, they booed me at halftime. They booed the team. I get it.
I understand when we play home or away, and you play Crystal Palace, we have to win. And with all respect, and I know every game in the Premier League is difficult, and you have to play your best. But I understand that the fans expecting a win, and we didn't win, and we lost.
You did. Is this going to get worse before it gets better, Stuart?
Well, put it this way. I thought there was signs of recovery from United last season. I think a lot of his decisions were reasonably good decisions, managerial-wise. But this season, you look at United as a football team, I think they look very leggy in midfield, very sort of one-paced at the heart of their midfield, and it exposes the team. And I think too many players are off form at this moment in time. I'm still not 100% sure about the Maguire situation at the club. I think he's too good a player to be left on the bench continually like he is. But that's a judgment call from the manager. And I can't see it improving very quickly. Do I not think Ten Hag's not the right man for the job? No, I think he probably still is the right man for the job. But he's got some turning round to do.
I mean, the problems seem to mount rather than recede, Simon, do they not? Just when you think they're getting somewhere, they don't.
They're not a very good side in terms of when you look at Manchester United and you think of Man United. And if we wait long enough, Souness' observation on Casemiro will prove to be right, because ultimately he's talked about him in a certain way.
Yeah.
But I look at this side and I think to myself, good players not playing very well. I think the boy Højlund up top is going to be a player. I think he's got a little bit about him. But I look at United and I think the irony of it is when you play the same team, and Stuart can speak to this probably more eloquently than me, when you play the same team in a week, that can often be a troublesome fixture. And that's why it was so damaging for Everton last year when they got beat twice in a week by Bournemouth, and that was the end of Lampard at Everton, because you could see that their bounce back from the League Cup defeat for Bournemouth to Everton. Everton's defeat was compounded by an even worse performance on the weekend. Whereas in this instance, Palace were really bad in the middle of the week. Roy Hodgson, was very unhappy about the footballing lesson that he got, and he got a better, more disciplined, much more structured performance from Palace in that game. And United were a little bit profligate at times, but they were poor. And they're not a great side, and they were poor. I mean, that 4-3 game against Bayern Munich, that's not a reflection of that game. Bayern Munich did it at canter. Every time Man United had the audacity to score a goal, Bayern Munich went up the field and scored another one. If it had stayed on for another 5 minutes, Bayern Munich would have made it 5-3. Then United would have got 5-4, and then Bayern Munich made it 6-4. Look, they're not a great side. I'm not sure whether Ten Hag is the right outcome. But notwithstanding that, I still think...
You're not sure about him now?
I've never been sure about him. I mean, I used that ridiculous expression I made last year about a small man in a big suit.
Yeah, but at the end of the season, top 4 and a cup, so it wasn't all bad.
No, it wasn't, and that's why you have to give him dispensation. But now what you're doing is you're building. The problem with Manchester United is you have got to manage everything in the micro. You can't do it in the macro. So everything that happens is a crisis. You lose to Crystal Palace is a crisis. They've lost to Crystal Palace on a number of occasions at Old Trafford over the last 3 or 4 years. It's not something that's not happened before. But in this instance, because you're looking for these green shoots of recovery, we're waiting for... If we're being entirely honest in the media, we're waiting for the next crisis at Man United because we know it gives us enormous amount of traction.
Well, we don't have to wait; they do it for you.
Indeed,
and the media reports on what it sees.
Indeed,
and what it sees is none too impressive. And what we saw, Stuart, and this, Simon, you might think this is a minor detail, but this is mighty, iconic Manchester United with its leaky roof at Old Trafford. It went viral on social media. Some of their own fans getting drenched with constant drips coming down, a flow of water bouncing off their heads, on their jackets, and they had to sit underneath it. This is Old Trafford. Does it epitomise the demise of the Glazer ownership when you look at that? When you get somebody in to fix that roof, this is Manchester United. I know the Glazers can do no wrong in your eyes. I think it was the Glazers
on the roof peeing on top of the fans.
That's
right.
What
it was.
But I mean,
do you know how difficult it is to get a tradesman these days? You know what I mean?
Indeed.
They rung a roofer years ago, and he's just not.
You can't get one at the weekend.
Can't get one.
But on a serious note, Simon, If United fans want to point the finger at the owners and they don't need any encouragement, there's another reason to do it.
Of course.
Look at it.
It to me, it makes no sense, right? Because there has to be something behind it. I know, let's go spend £200 million on players per season, but not spend £5 million fixing a roof. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? It's an easy win. They've been talking about this roof for some time. The fans have been whining about it. We've had the Man United Supporters Trust on in Last Chance Saloon, which means precisely nothing. And you'd think that there must be some logic behind ignoring this roof, because it makes no sense. I mean, what's it going to cost? Virtually nothing to repair it. So there must be something more behind the reasons why they're consistently allowing this to be a narrative that gets spun out. They've spent £1.7 billion on players in the last 10 years. Right? So why wouldn't they spend £2 or £3 million patching up a roof? Probably not even that amount of money. Probably about 100 grand.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Why? So why then? Why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah. Well, if you're the owner, you'd be like, get that damn thing fixed.
Well,
the media will go to town on it.
But you would, wouldn't you?
I can almost hear you.
But that's precisely what I would do. I'd go, well, don't give them this. That's an open goal. Why would we give them enough opportunities to criticise us legitimately? Why would you give them this one? So there must be something behind it.
Well, they don't care, do they? I suppose.
Maybe they're astounded.
But it's an
it rains
incidental,
in
isn't
Manchester.
it? It's such an incidental. They've got a £350 million wage bill. They spend £200 million on player transfers. Why would you want to make this a discussion point? It's so rudimentary, unnecessary.
It seems almost too. You're right. Why would it? I mean, it's absolute fodder for Gary Neville. He's right. He's right. The Glazers. Yeah. Point the finger at the Glazers. Get the roofer in, but they won't. They won't. The Glazers.
But it's the team on the pitch. I mean, all of this would be relatively incidental if the team on the pitch was reflective of what Manchester United fans are entitled to.
For sure. 12:30.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.